Allowing yourself to fail is the secret sauce, right? Because you experiment, you only learn from failing, by the way. You don't learn from successes because it worked. So what do you learn? When you lose and you try to understand or you fail, you try to understand what went wrong. And then you find a way to solve it, Definitely. And then you do it, okay? So even if things doesn't work for the first time, it will work in the second time. But then you can actually get there. If you don't try, you won't get there.
Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Just sit back, relax, and learn from the leaders of today. It's a journey. Each one is different, unique, inspiring. Let's get started. This episode is powered by J Ventures, a community-driven VC fund in Silicon Valley, in partnership with Lomitech, and sponsored by Homeward Ventures, Hippo Insurance, Upwest, Hillel at Stanford, Leap, and Birthright Excel. Let's talk about autonomous vehicles and what is enabling autonomous vehicles. Today, we are with Innoviz, and we're going to meet Omer Keilaf, co-founder and CEO of Innoviz Technologies, a leading provider of LiDAR sensing solutions. Mr. Keilaf is helping to enable the mass commercialization of autonomous vehicles, and under his leadership, the company has won a program with BMW for the industry's first series production of autonomous vehicles, as well as a number of partnerships with leading Tier 1 solution providers. Prior to co-founding Innoviz, Omer served as an officer in the elite technological unit of the intelligence corps of the Israel Defense Forces, Unit 81, and held senior leadership roles in various companies. Omer holds a BSc and MSc in electrical engineering and an MBA, all from the Tel Aviv University. Omer Keilaf, welcome to 20-Minute Leaders.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you very, very much for hosting me here. Obviously, we're not in my regular studio, and we're not in a traditional office space. Where are we right now?
We are in the Innoviz garage. This is where we have several cars here, where we test the technology for autonomous cars.
Okay, so we're talking about garage, cars, autonomous vehicles. I wish, one day that I could have cars with my logo on them in my own office, but...
Your wish is my command.
Okay, there you go. We have it on record, but...
Yeah.
5 years ago...
You'll need to buy a BMW, so you won't get it from me.
5 years ago, you had a vision. You saw the
3D
world...
3D vision, by the way. 3D vision.
There you go. You saw the world and where we're heading with autonomous vehicles. And we don't have to go and describe what autonomous vehicles is. I think enough people know it by now, but you're creating a technology that enables it and is pushing the world forward, making it actually a possibility. And I would love to hear a little bit about this journey and a little bit about your own vision. And I want you to take me back, before we even talk about Innoviz, take me back to you. And what led to your conviction that this is a company that you want to build, and how you use that vision to strategically point you all the way up to making it a public company?
Yeah, okay. So actually I can start by saying that when I was looking to start my own company, I had, more than one idea. Okay, I had actually 20 something different startups that I was kind of collecting ideas through the years. And I always knew that I would pick up a certain, a path where I'll become, an entrepreneur. And going through the list...
How early did you know that you want to be an entrepreneur?
I think, my background is I was in Unit 81, which is a very technical kind of, a very inspiring place.
Very creative place.
Very creative. And it's always, even there, it's like always about bringing very new technologies in a very short time. And the methodologies, the school I come from, it comes from a lot of, how to develop new technology in a very short time and managing risks, etc. And it's about making the right decision in the right time, and sometimes and even taking some risks. But what the slogan of that unit is about capabilities, passion, and commitment. That's kind of like exactly what I was looking for when I started a new company of myself. I was looking for something that I can do that can actually bring everything all together. And once you are engaged with a technology that is life-saving, and you know how critical it is, it really connects everything.
So I want to pause on this for a second, because you're describing this technology first as life-saving. Now, I think that when you talk about autonomous vehicles in the public mindset today, and if I look at the headlines, very rarely do I see the term life-saving. I see better for fuel consumption. I see, you don't need drivers anymore. You can do your emails, but you're talking about life-saving. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you think about mobility, and that's something that we do on a daily basis. I mean, every day we drive somewhere because we have to, it's part of our life. And basically, that is still possibly the most risky action you do on a daily basis, which, we're all part of, right? I was driving a motorcycle once, many years ago. And after 2 or 3 years, I decided to stop. And I remember when I decided to stop, I felt that I was lucky.
Wow.
I felt that I was managing to escape the statistics. Because every driver, motorcycle driver, understand that it's under a huge risk. We as a car drivers, we know that it's a risk. We feel it less, but it's obviously still the biggest problem we face on a daily basis. 80% or 90% of the accidents are still caused by human, and that's a problem that could be solved. And by the way, most of the accidents, they happen due to human distraction.
Right.
And overconfidence that we have as drivers. We drive on the road, we become bored, we see that, that it's empty, and we think that we got it, we manage it, and, we look at the phone, and, in a second, something happens. And, solving that problem is already available. I mean, the technology is now, I'm talking about today, is already there. It's only about, now it's mostly engineering. It's not but 5 years ago, there was a gap. I mean, there was a real gap in technology to allow it to happen. And that's what made me devoted. My older sister, she got into a very serious accident when I was a kid. And it completely changed the life of my family. My mother stopped working. My father was she was in a hospital for a year and a half.
Wow.
So obviously, when you're seeing what happens when someone is just injured, and how it affects so many people around him, it's we have to solve it, right? I mean, Corona changed our life. And everybody was not accepting it. Nobody accepted that our life changed, but we're actually accepting for many years, 100 years now, that it's okay that every year you have 2 million people killed and 20 or 50
million,
1.5.
Wow.
And I don't know, between 20 and 50 million people are injured every year.
Wow.
And nobody is, with Corona, people were asking when the solution is going to come. Everyone's waiting for the next vaccine to come, and we were all wishing it will come, but nobody's waiting. Where's the protests around my office?
Yes.
Make it happen already. I want the people to say, okay, I escaped the statistics, right? I don't need to drive anymore because it's safer. Because eventually, machines will be able to drive much better than the driver, right? It's
100%.
And it's almost there.
Now, if you look back 5 years, you're just starting out.
Mm-hmm.
As an entrepreneur, and so you have this, intrinsic motivation based on also personal experience, but you're also understanding the bigger gap. This is before also, the analogy, the comparison to Corona. I mean, this is obviously, we know where the world is headed. What do you set out for yourself? What is sort of the goal that you say to yourself, this is what I want to achieve as an entrepreneur in this domain?
Well, you can't imagine how the world would look like 5 years later. I don't think I could imagine like where we are today. But the thing that drew me to this startup is also because, I was looking to do something that I thought that I have some personal advantage. From my background. The technology, there are many ideas I was thinking about, but I couldn't convince myself that I can do this better than anyone else, right? I mean, it's a good idea. Someone should do it. I'm not sure it's me. I mean, I'm not sure that eventually, bottom line, I bring all of the needed experience and knowledge in that specific field that will make me successful as someone else. And I was looking for something that I do have an edge. And specifically in our technology, there are many cutting technologies inside. but actually in some that I have actually a lot of experience with. And that's what allowed me to eventually bring such a cutting edge technology. And I had, I can give you an interesting insight or history. We started Innoviz and we raised money quite quickly. Based on the background of the founders and really, a growing market, but it went everything like very, very quickly. We didn't have really a real opportunity to talk with a customer because, when a car maker wouldn't talk to, some young, excited entrepreneur and start to tell him what he's looking for.
Right.
Now
we're talking about companies that have hundreds of thousands of employees.
Yeah, of course.
Like
some of them are like GM and BMW. Like,
right.
You will never get an access to talk with them to understand really what they look for.
Right.
And the only thing we had to see in order to understand what's already available and kind of get a benchmark of the market was a technology which was really like very big and very expensive. And we thought that if we will make that smaller and cheaper, we will solve the problem. Because everybody was only talking about price, like price and size and reliability, and we knew how to solve that problem. But once we started to talk with customers, and that was only possible when you were funded, and like our VCs actually opened up doors for us to talk with them, and we told them about our plans. And they said, look, the existing technology, yes, it's too expensive and it's unreliable, but it's not good enough. We are looking for a technology that needs to solve something much more difficult. We need much higher resolution. We need much higher, longer range and higher frame rate. And it was, just to give you kind of a reference, it was like almost 3 orders of magnitude more difficult. And we were shocked, like how far actually what we were thinking to do.
Wow.
And what the market is really needs. And you can imagine how stressful that was, right?
Yeah.
I mean, 3 orders of magnitude. Now, I think the solution always comes in the way that a startup, he needs to make a decision on what product he is going to develop. But it's also very important to understand when, okay? If you're in a sense of urgency, you have to bring something to the market next year, because the window of selection is done in a year, it leaves you a certain time to develop.
Right.
But if you understand that autonomous driving, eventually it's not next year, it's actually further ahead, you understand that you can plan differently, and you can go into a deeper path, in like a longer path in developing the right technology to solve the problem.
Right.
And you should also be aware that you shouldn't take too high of a risk, because you might go into try to develop something that is not possible to solve. I mean, taking a technology that will take you 20 years, it's not good enough.
So along these same lines, as a deep technologist, also a CEO, you just came back from doing some amazing demos in New York for a week. And what I'm trying to now figure out is, how do you balance being the engineer, a core engineer with the cutting edge technology, and at the same time having to sell and partner with some of the most complicated organizations in the world, with hundreds of thousands of employees? And how do you know when to go back and forth? Because obviously there's implications and there's opportunity cost for doing either too late or too soon.
Mm-hmm. So first off, we are in an industry which is very technical. So my customers are not, they are doctors, right? They are optical engineers and AI engineers, and you need to talk their language, okay? And when they meet a CEO that is only marketing, you won't go through. And you have to understand their needs. And once you have alignment on the strategy, meaning that you're solving something they care about, you start to create those engagements. BMW is our first customer, okay? They chose us for serious production when we were less than a 2 years company.
Wow.
And that's probably something they never done before.
Yeah.
I hope they will do it again. But they chose us because they believed in our strategy. When we told them about what we want to develop and why, they agreed. Basically, they agreed that that's the way to solve the problem, because there are many ways, but they agreed this is the right way. And after a year of due diligence, we're talking with my engineers, a year of due diligence.
On a company that is 2 years old.
Yeah, they brought, no, look, they came in to our offices. We were in Kfar Saba, not in this place. We were a smaller company. They brought tens of engineers on a weekly basis to really go into our design and work with my engineers to understand our plans, because it's a big risk for them. I mean, going to serious production is, for a car maker, we all know about just in time. Like that, when a factory is producing cars, if there is anything that slows it down because one piece of equipment that is missing, it's a catastrophe. It's like it's stopping. It's millions of dollars a day of loss, and therefore, choosing a technology has to be with very high risk management. And they chose us after really a year of due diligence, and eventually got to a conviction that the engineers are very capable and they can deliver.
Wow.
And that's what eventually led to our nomination. And since then, we are working with them, and now we already have the product. I mean, the product that we were telling them about, like 3.5 years ago, like we had nothing to show seriously as even resembles really the product. Even I can tell you that now we're working on our second generation. It's 30 times better than this one, okay? Which is already quite amazing. And, I have a customer who he wants to use the next generation. And he said, look, until the product will arrive, I would like to use Innoviz One. I don't care, because it's only for testing and evaluation. Help me use several of those so I can, use it in the meantime. Like, I don't want to put a few of them on the car, so I can gather something that simulates how the next product would be. And I told them, look, you'll need to use 30.
Amazing.
It's 30. I mean, it's 30 times better. It means you need 30 of those. So you want to use 30? I'm not sure. So it's kind of like amazing to see how fast the technology.
How does this impact, this conviction? So going back to BMW bringing tens of engineers to work with your engineers and yourself, what does this do to the company culture as your engineers are sitting in the offices and they're getting this approval in a massive due diligence process from BMW? And the reason I'm asking this is because we live in a generation now where entrepreneurs are capable of raising funds at a much easier rate than before, which means that oftentimes they run quicker than the product is actually being developed. And I'm wondering, maybe there are some cases where people in a company feel that the company isn't meeting the expectations of the product that it's supposed to be doing, which is not what I'm hearing here.
I think that one of the best things that happened to this company is that we were overfunded at the beginning. Okay, I was looking to raise, I don't know, $750,000. I closed a round of $9 million.
Wow.
Okay, now you can imagine that it allowed us to do more.
Right.
And I can tell you that even when we decided to raise more money, we didn't plan to raise 9, we planned to raise 4. And what that gives you is basically we had a plan that met the $4 million spending. But since we have more ability, in a way, we talked about, we have 3 coins, each one is $1 million. And we are going to make a bet on a technology, and I'm not talking about a bet. I'm obviously going into something more risky in terms of whether it will work eventually or not.
Right.
But if it will be a major acceleration of the process. And we've done it on many fronts, and all of them succeeded. It's amazing because, look, when you have a good engineering practice, you're not really making bets. You're just taking more risk.
Right, exactly.
And those risks eventually allows you to run faster. Yes, after 1 year, we were able to bring a technology that was better than many companies that were working years before us. And it was because we were not afraid to fail.
So it sounds like
we had nothing to lose, right?
You ran with the funds that a large company would be able to put into a project like this, but with a startup mindset. And so you were able to run fast these risks, and amazing.
Allowing yourself to fail is the secret sauce, right? Because you experiment, you only learn from failing, by the way. You don't learn from successes because it worked. So what do you learn? When you lose and you try to understand, or you fail, you try to understand what went wrong. And then you find a way to solve it,
Definitely.
And then you do it, okay? So even if things doesn't work for the first time, it will work in the second time. But then you can actually get there. If you don't try, you won't get there. And I can tell you that one of the, when I started and we found that 3 orders of magnitude difficulty, there was a lot of debate on how to tackle it. Most of my competitors, if not all, they were in the same position 5 years ago, and they decided to do something else. And they decided to do something that is as close as possible, okay? Meaning that, okay, we'll do something that is in higher performance, but never mind the cost, or only doing something very cheap, but the performance is very poor. And they took the easy path because I could make the same decision, and I can tell you that some people in the group thought that might be the right thing because say, let's do something that is higher performance, but we'll take care of the cost later. And I said, look, if we do that, we might end up with a product that you can scale with, right? Because it doesn't really solve the problem. So why are we doing it? I mean, I brought the best engineers in Israel to solve a problem, not to do I'm not a LiDAR company. I'm not a LiDAR. I'm not selling LiDARs. I'm selling a product for autonomous vehicles that can enable it to scale. That's what I do. If I fail, I will fail. But if I will succeed, I made something meaningful. If I will try to do something that only allows me to sell, LiDARs in maybe a different industry, it's not where I'm here for.
And this is why the investors preempted and requested to be part of this vision, because it's pretty rare to meet somebody who's saying, I'm going all out. I'm going for the moonshot. I think I can succeed, but hey, we might fail, but I'm going to go for the moonshot.
You're right, but you have to be, but I can tell you there were companies that were shooting for the moon, and in a way, after 5 years, they learned they have another 15 years ahead of them, and they decided to stop. Because you have to be practical.
Right.
You can't, there is a window where you need to fit, and you shouldn't overshoot, because you can go into a tunnel and never go out, okay? You need to be still in discussion and ability to access the market with a product and improve it. It's not always, it's never like, it's like the perfect. You need to find the right fit. And that's a dialogue you continuously do with the market and understanding what things you need to change over time. It's not like we had, like after we did that, we went into, once realizing we have that gap, we went into 3 or 4 months of just brainstorming. We kind of, looked at different ways to solve it and eventually decided. But of course, even when we launched the process, you always, you need to kind of be very sensitive, because understanding if the market is pulled in or pulled out, whether there are new technologies, whether there are more opportunities. So that's kind of like the art, right? Like it always, like being a startup is about taking risks, but managing them.
Right.
Taking risks is just one part.
It's managing those risks.
Managing those risks is the more important one, right? It's always to be on guard and...
Right, anybody can take a bet. It's managing the bet. The small device, generation 1, soon generation 2. What is it? What do you actually do? What is Innoviz in, just a little bit?
This, okay. So you can see it's a device that is looks like a small spaceship.
Yeah.
It's very nice looking. You can hold it. It's very cool. So yes, there are really a lot of technologies that we had to develop here. I think that one of the parts that
it looks like glasses, like
it's an optical sensor eventually. So when we started, there was a lot of confusion about what's the right way to solve this problem. And really, there are many ways to try to do it, but eventually you have to be very careful with the pricing because automotive is super sensitive to pricing.
Yeah.
And that's a problem you can't solve. That's the market. That's the willingness to pay. You can do an amazing product, but if it doesn't fit the pricing capabilities of people, because most of the cars today and are going to be still in the next 10 years privately owned.
Right.
Okay, and a person needs to buy a car, and it can't afford buying a sensor that costs thousands of dollars.
Which means for you, the translation for you as an entrepreneur means you have to develop a product that won't impact the price of the end result dramatically.
You need to understand the willingness to pay of your customers, and it's very sensitive. And again, you can miss it by, slightly, and it just doesn't pass because in every car company there are commercial engineers that all they do is calculate the willingness of people to pay for a certain feature, and if it's beyond that, they will not do it.
Right.
They will just wait out until it will be affordable, because otherwise nobody will buy it, and they will lose money. So it's about understanding the pricing pressure, and then we understood of what kind of technologies could eventually allow us to get there. And of course, there was nothing on the shelf. Like, we had to develop the entire chipset that allowed us to do a good LiDAR. If we had just bought components off the shelf, a laser, a detector, and some of the other electronics, we will probably get where the others, are, right? And it's not really solving the problem. So we had to go into the deep layers of the physics.
So this is designed and manufactured by you, and more on the impact of the design.
Yes, exactly. We're not manufacturing it.
Right.
We have a production line in Germany. We have a production line.
No, I mean,
But eventually, the design of the chips, we have 3 chips that we design here.
Amazing.
And in the following generation, there is another one. Actually, we're changing several of those. It's like Innoviz One, which we designed for BMW primarily. It was under a very clear mindset of a certain timeline that we need to meet.
Yeah.
So once we were nominated, it was about delivering. It was about execution. It's no longer like a research. It's not. We cannot go into a path where we don't know whether we are able to meet it. It's like you're going to production.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, you are developing you're working on the industrialization of the product. There are teams that are continuously working on the next generation. Now, we are now taking all of those, I would say, new innovation and brought into the next product, Innoviz 2. And that's what's allowing us to bring it not only 30 times better, but also 70% cost reduction. Yeah, it's a much cheaper product.
Wow.
So it's also allowing us to be very competitive in even lower grade cars, right? I mean, not only the BMWs of the world, right? Eventually, you want to scale to every.
The majority of private owners are owning not BMWs.
Exactly, unfortunately.
Unfortunately. Maybe one day.
One day, yeah.
Amazing. Now, while we're talking about this, I want to also go back a little bit and understand you with the personality going into Innoviz. So you were always an engineer, right? Now, what does it mean for you? Were you an engineer when you started 81? Were you an engineer before that in your mindset?
I was an engineer in 81, and I was an engineer. After 7 years, I left and I joined 3 startups in Israel.
Yeah.
And most of my career, I was acting as an engineer in a kind of like management in terms of leading.
But I want to know about the mindsets.
Yeah.
But like when you were 10, 11, were you an engineer?
I don't know. I mean, I was always very technical. I liked coding. I teach myself coding, and I enjoyed it very much. I was very much in love with the topic. I actually went to study electric engineering rather than software development, although that was my initial passion, because I saw that it gives me more tools. It's more tools to play with. That's what I love. I really love technologies that are very multidisciplinary, where I can actually try to solve a problem in many, many ways and
Right.
find the right fit between them. I always say this technology is like a spaghetti. It's like super complicated. There's so much coupling between the different components, and this is where I think that is my advantage in, because I can bring the integration all together and things to operate together. I think part of this also requires a very strong collaboration between the team, because such components will not talk with each other if people won't,
Exactly.
and such a technology requires a very good team spirit. And I think when we started Innoviz, we did like an Ocean 11 project. We met with people in coffee shops, bringing the best mechanical engineer, optical engineer. Like we really brought all of the people.
I can imagine it. Yeah.
Like, because, after 7 years in that unit and then 3-point startups, you meet so many people and you say, wow, if I could bring him, that would be so amazing. We started to reach out to them, and we brought a team that was crazy,
Wow.
And there are so many good things when that happens, because, first off, obviously things, work very fast, because those are the top engineers ever. And also, once you bring such a big group all together from day one, you create a very strong DNA. It's like a core that nothing can really change. And when people come into the company, they see that team, they want to be part of it.
Right.
And also, no one can really change that DNA, because it's already like a very big core. And things go well because people are very smart, and it brings customers, it brings investors. Everything goes in the right direction. It's like a huge, power source.
Now, if you had to choose a few words to describe yourself, what would they be? Or if I were to ask anybody from Innoviz, or anybody from BMW, or your wife, or your kids.
Each one will probably say something slightly different, but I would say that we are 3 founders, and each one of us have a different character. We are a different superhero. Okay. I think that I bring a lot of. I have the fit of the combination of vision, and paranoid, because it keeps me up. I'm always trying to understand what can go wrong, and understand. I have my partner who is leading the R&D. He organizes a big team in a very he has meetings all day, and understand where things are and how to try to solve it. I'm the guy that actually goes around the office all the time and try to talk with people, what's going on, what are you looking at, what's the problems, where are you stuck, and I'm a problem solver.
I love that.
I never go to sleep, by the way, before I solve a problem.
I love
and
that.
If I can find a good problem to solve, I play Sudoku or something, but I can't go to sleep before I feel I solved something.
Amazing.
So that's a kind of the combination. I really like to see, I always think further away, like where I want to be. Even now, I have ideas of where I want to bring this company forward. And those are things that usually surprises people, because there are so many things we can do. And then it's the practical kind of stuff, to make things that the execution happen, and understand how to solve problems. I enjoy solving problems. That's what I do.
Omer, toda rabba. This was inspiring. I'm sorry that I went way beyond 20 minutes. I just loved it so much, and I really appreciate the time and the technology. And really the most inspiring thing for me is the very first sentence you said, when I asked you, what are you doing? And the first thing you said was life-saving, which is a little contrarian to the way that the media and the world talks about autonomous vehicles, or the priorities of why we're doing autonomous vehicles. Obviously, that is the priority, and I just love that that's the intrinsic motivation that you're after. And thank you for everything.
You're welcome. Thank you.